feel a foreigner in my own borough. We will.
Right, all. So I'm just going to play a couple of clips from, and also to draw attention to it because a lot of people haven't heard of this documentary. It aired back in 2016. It was called Last Rites of the East End. My main issue is going to be trying to get around the copyright, so I have to play certain clips that really were quite depressing, and it's more of a warning really. The East End is basically a warning to the rest of the country of what's going to happen if things continue as they are. If you notice, all these people, they're not happy with what's going on and they're all moving out. So these soppy middle class types that you see, out in the rural Northumberland or rural Wiltshire, just as examples, with their vote Labour, vote Liberal Democrats sign because it's good to be on the virtuous side, and it's easy to hand things over rather than maintain them, isn't it? So it's just a warning to you, really. And all the delusional young kids who've been brainwashed by the university, college, school factories, again, it's a warning to you. So, first, this is the first bit. And I will say the BBC did a great job on this documentary. The BBC is a funny one because they'll do things like The Last Kingdom, which were phenomenal, absolutely extraordinary in representation of Bernard Cornwell's novels, on a par with Sharp. There was no diversity, there was no LGBTQI, it was just a genuine, almost patriotic drama of how England was, during the time of King Alfred. So, yeah, good on the BBC for this documentary. We didn't hold any punches and showed it as it was.
I feel a foreigner in my own borough. We were born here, lived here.
So, what he says, I'm having to keep pausing this, so apologies. I'll leave the link to this documentary in my comments, but you're going to have to listen to me rambling on in between just to break up the copyright. I'm doing this mainly because it makes me feel better that I've tried to do something to wake up the people who are asleep and still believe in this myth that we're all going to get on with each other and this is all for our own good. We were never asked, obviously, is another reason. But we're born here. So you find a lot of immigrants constantly going on about that they were born here. So they're as British as someone like myself whose ancestry goes back in this country almost indefinitely, along with Northwest Europe.
Finding ourselves marginalised out.
Yep, so that's another thing that's happening all across the country. People, they move in and we move out. That's the way it goes. And if you don't believe me, look at anywhere. Look at Liverpool. The streets that used to be was it Breck Road? I'm not from Liverpool. I'm just watching Joe Owens and what he talks about. But people have had to just pack up and leave from there. They don't stay, do they? Not many people stay and live this rainbow lifestyle of multiculturalism and all that. Because a lot of people coming here don't like us. They want to take over.
You would never get better than the East End, I don't think. And I feel a lot of the culture is moving out. I don't think there's going to be a lot of East End left. I don't, honestly. I do think it's going to just dwindle out.
How devastating is that? You look at the East End, I would have been back in the 60s, 70s, obviously long before I was born. But you look at the photos, even like the Cray twins walking around in the suits, suit and tie, and the Cockney rhyming, and it's the thing is, if I ever venture into the East End, it's a scary place. Certain areas like Tower Hamlets and Aldgate. I was only speaking to a lady from Aldgate the other day, and she was saying it's nothing like she remembered, and she was in her 80s or 90s, and it's just sad, isn't it?
And you wonder where they've all gone. You see them all moving out, but you wonder where they've all gone.
Bit of a simple answer to that. Most people packed up and left to Essex. Even the young lady in this documentary, she's packing up and leaving, and she's going to Rayleigh. I've met loads of people in Essex, on my travels this year that are ex-East Enders. People in Jaywick were from East End. People from Canby Island were from Romford. Romford's a bit of a funny one, really. It's on the outskirts of the East End. You know, there's a good gap. It's not really like the condensed area of East End at all. You know, it's more towards Essex. But yeah, there's a simple answer to all. Parts up and left to Essex, really.
The life that we know is finished. Don't you agree? Yeah, it's finished.
Even myself from Derby, you know, I can relate to that comment there. You know, I was only saying to someone yesterday that all the pubs. I mean, things change, obviously, of course. That's life. That's nature. But you know, anyone who's from Derby will remember with Debenhams. You know, the big, the archway, the arches that were underneath, arches and pillars that were underneath the Debenhams where we used to wait for the buses. That's just one big dystopian block of flats now. You know, there's gangs of Africans walking around at night time. It's Saturday night is a lot more quiet than it used to be because things are changing. Unfortunately, it's not the city it was when I was a kid, sort of 20 years ago. I mean, it had its problems even back then. You know, I used to go boxing in the Muslim Asian area and got a good hiding a few times. I remember there was one time when I was about, I don't know, must have been about 12, and I think this 15-year-old Muslim, who's obviously a lot bigger and stronger than I was, you know, literally got me upstairs and just beat me up. You know, whether it's racially motivated, I don't know, but I would say it probably was.
People who cast opinions about immigration and how wonderful it is for us, they should come and spend a day or two in Newham.
Spot on. So there's that phrase in the diversity tourism. So all these liberal middle class types who probably, like Gary Lineker, well, he's obviously upper class, but he's a prime example. They will live in their little, or James O'Brien, they'll live in places like Kingston upon Thames or all these wealthy sort of areas of London where you can live a parallel life to, you know, the ghettos that's not too far away. You know, they need to go and live there. I'm not saying just visit there, I mean live there. You need to really get yourself in there and live amongst it for a month at least and see what you really think of it. Not just kind of visit for the day, have a fancy restaurant and then go home preaching about how virtuous you are because you've been into a multicultural area and had a, you know, a samosa.
Newham, in London's East End, is home to a tight-knit white working class community who have lived here for hundreds of years.
That's the thing, isn't it? You think a lot of these people, why would you ever want to leave the East End? You know, you wherever you're from is where you normally want to stay. You know, I mean, I've travelled all over the UK with my job, but I mean, I always gravitate back to Derby because I prefer hearing my own accent from time to time, and it's where I'm familiar with. It's where my memories are. There's people I still know from the area. And it goes back to this thing these migrants often go on about that I'm second generation or I was born here. It's irrelevant. You know, like, your ancestry doesn't go back there.
But over the past 15 years, something extraordinary has happened to this Cockney tribe. More than half of them have disappeared. Now the
Disappeared. So I think more like relocated. Just had enough and got fed up with it and moved on. That St George there, just kind of desperately hanging on, kind of is a good analogy for what's happened. 2001, it was, so we're saying over the last 15 years it's changed. You know, 2001. I remember as a lad growing up in Derby as a primary school and secondary school. I used to often see or hear Cockneys coming up. You know, we'd take the piss out of their accents and that, but obviously we didn't really know as kids why they were coming up. Obviously nowadays we do. They were escaping the horrors of multiculturalism.
few who remain are struggling to hold on to their identity in the place.
Yeah, that's a goal of communism for you. Getting rid of identity, just turning us into a big global, rootless, atomised population.
They've always called home.
Again, you know, like, these people from the East End would have always known that place is home, and it's just been taken away from them, or handed over by the politicians, should I say. The irony being is it's these ordinary white working class people that built all these houses and so on.
Right, I'll go down the kitchen.
Together, it's the same as you and I.
We are a close family, but the girls are like sisters. It ain't like a mum and two daughters.
I thought that bit was really touching, you know. But so basically, anyone who doesn't know, the mother is crying because her daughter's packing up and leaving. The daughter obviously has had enough, you know, from what I can gather later on in the documentary. She's had enough and she's packing up and she's leaving for Rayleigh in Essex. And I just thought that was so sad, you know, like, you know, a family literally being torn apart by what the government has done and the people that control the government. You know, they've literally torn apart families, communities. The same as what we did during something that happened in 2020 to 2022. The amount of families and arguments that caused. But yeah.
All right, you know that. Together, it's the same.
Yeah, it's devastating, that is.
Each have 2 children of their own.
Leanne's got the 2 boys, Freddie and Teddy, and then Amy's got Millie and Madison.
One thing I've noticed is, you know, we are still hanging in there, so that's all we need to do to kind of reproduce, you know, 2 kids. And I haven't had kids just yet, but hopefully in the future I will. But yeah, so we're still hanging in there despite what's being done.
Years ago, people would have a fight with their fist, and that'd be it when we grew up going to school. Not anymore. Now people will bring in knives. It's not like...
Yeah, people bringing knives. Well, certain demographics certainly will. I'm not for a second saying it's always been peaceful, you know, across England, and you know, we've been at war with each other for a long time, and we reached a point during the Victorian age and the Georgian age where it calmed down a bit, and even right up into the 80s, 90s. But it's a different level of violence that's coming in now because these people from the third world are obviously coming in. And I remember seeing a documentary recently where I think the Somalians or the Nigerians moved in, and I think it was the Nigerians were saying the Somalians were too dangerous and they're upping their levels of violence to beat the Nigerians basically. So, you know, how do you compete with that?
Doors open, you know who you was hanging around with, you don't know.
And it's not your children, it's other people.
It is other people as well. And it's just scary, I think.
Spot on. That young woman there, she's obviously got her head screwed on and sees it as it is. She's probably more acute, more sensitive to it, and she's absolutely right. You know, it is scary. It's just we don't know who these people are. I mean, they've come from all around the world. I'm well aware they're human beings still, but you know, they're grouped together. That's the thing. It's human nature. It's like Muhammad Ali said when he was taking on Michael Parkinson. Birds with a feather stick together. Bluebirds want to be with bluebirds. Blackbirds want to be with blackbirds. All the birds, but they've got different cultures. But that's a different topic and a different video.
Rome has been shaped by immigration for generations, but the past 15 years have been defined by it.
Yeah, you know, the BBC give kind of half-truths, don't they, because they're all full of liberals. And this documentary is not bad, though. But that, to rephrase what that woman just said, immigration, when we're talking about immigration in the past, it was like a small controlled amount, probably people from like France or Norway or, you know, Ireland, and that's fine, you know, in small amounts. But the problem is obviously now, you know, the last 15 years, as it says, it's all people from all around the world.
Newham welcomed unprecedented numbers of new residents from all corners of the globe. At the same time, more than half of the white British population has moved out, breaking...
Well, what does that tell you? Does that not say something that when all these people moved in, the British people moved out, you know, to all these soppy liberals? It doesn't work.
The tight-knit family their community was built on.
What's happened? What has happened to the East End Road?
Yeah, so it's just the destruction of this country. And look at that landscape there. How dystopian is that? It's just hell on earth, isn't it? All these retail parks and industrial stuff, and it's ugly, isn't it? High-rise buildings. You know, it's not the England of 50 years ago.
Was the close-knit family. I'm still here because my mum's here. And that's how we was raised in it, to be around each other every minute of the day if you had to be. Do you know what I mean? And this is what...
Yeah, sure it is. With to be fair to the Muslim communities and the African communities as well, not so much, but the Muslims definitely, they really do look out for each other. But we've kind of lost that way.
I'm now losing my children to Essex because they don't want to live in the East End, and I still want to know why. I've lived.
Without being rude to the lady, I think you probably know the answer why, because you know the lady that's on the camera now, she's already kind of said it's not safe anymore. It's not safe, you know, and the lady who was talking a second ago, the mum, she already knows deep down. You know, she talked about it at the beginning. You know, the East End culture is going to dwindle out. You know, that was her words. So.
Only time will tell where they cope with it once it's happened.
Cheers.
It will split us all up. There's no doubt it will. It will. That's the hardest thing.
Yeah. There's no point kind of saying, getting all angry with the politicians for what they've done, because they're great they're enjoying everything they're doing. Why else would they be doing it? You know, they love all this. The thing is that they kind of enjoy watching families getting split up, and you know the original British population getting dismantled. And how much of a dystopian image is this? You know, a boarded up house and a big Get Carter brutalised architecture in the background. Boarded up shops or whatever.
The biggest
Yeah.
change, I think,
Boarded up pub again. Yeah.
is the pub shape.
Yeah.
It closes.
There are so many pubs closed down.
Yeah, and you know, I say it enough times, but that's the reason why I've gone around recording them, because around 2018 I could see how many of them were dwindling out, so I got out my camera there to record them.
Muslims don't drink today, so that's enough.
Say it as it is.
That's another change.
You look at
Yeah, it's just, you know, our culture is all about pubs and drinking, and theirs isn't. So funny enough, when they move in, our culture disappears, which is the intention.
EastEnders, Coronation Street, Emmerdale, they've all got a pub in them. I don't know where my local pub is. In Bethnal Green, I've got one. I've got one.
One pub, but yeah, I've still got to do Bethnal Green. Yeah, dangerous area, no doubt.
Salmon and salt's still there. That's right.
I feel that we've been ethnically cleansed. It's so sad.
I'm going to put that clip at the front of the video. That to me kind of said, we all know it deep down, and that man just said it as it is. You know, we're literally being deliberately replaced. You'd have to be a fool to believe otherwise. I do have the reasons why I think it's these people coming here for numerous reasons. I think one of them is they're easier to control. Some of them are totally reliant on the government because they can't be arsed working. They're designed to destroy nationalities because the elites want a global society, a global... Because the thing is, you can't really destroy a strong nation as easily as you can if you bring all these people and you've got some mixed up global society, you know, where everyone's segregated and fighting against each other, because you're never going to turn to the powers that shouldn't be. They've created it all. And also chaos, you know, create a lot of chaos out of this, and then they can bring in more order. The list is endless. There's no end of reasons why this has happened.
The East Ham Working Men's Club has been serving Newham for over 60 years and is now one of the last places of refuge for its dwindling Cockney community.
Yeah, sad, innit?
But all that is totally gone now with multiculturalism. It's hard to find somebody who speaks English in Newham. We've always been a country with...
Yeah, how crazy is that in England? You know, struggling to find people who speak English.
immigration has played a part, but not on the scale that we find it now.
That guy is spot on. You know, he brings up some brilliant points. I know he's probably quite drunk, but he's right. You know, immigration has never happened on this scale.
I mean, you can go from Aldgate to Barking now, and there's very, very few English people.
Yeah, dangerous hellholes now. I know I've got lost in the East End when I did the East End. Well, I did like the City of London, but you can just happen to go east, you know, past the Tower Bridge, and find yourself in a bit of a ghetto, basically.
15 years of mass immigration and white flight have brought Newham to its tipping point.
Mr. Ali's halal ice cream. That's it. Just copy our culture, basically. Don't invent it themselves. Just copy it and alter it.
Now, Newham has the lowest white British population of anywhere in the UK.
Well, it's certainly on my to-do list, Newham. I think I'd definitely take my car so I can get away quickly. I'd imagine it's quite a scary place. Fair play to anyone who still lives there, though.
We had this massive transformation in which it seemed to happen overnight. People who have not been back here for many years, and like those massive transformation in which it seemed to happen overnight. People who have not been back here for many years, and like they say, "Oh God, I can't believe what's happened here." And I've come out up to Park Station, and I could be in Baghdad.
It's funny if you all say like what ordinary people who are switched on kind of say. It's you can't bring people from different continents and mix them all in, and think that people are just not going to notice, and it just doesn't make any difference.
White person. About 10 years ago, on the buses, you could count one white person to maybe 20 Asian people, you know, and the schools as well, you know, you go past and see a school done.
Yeah. Sorry I keep pausing it, I've got to because of the copyright. But yeah, it's obviously slowly dwindling into a minority.
And I think, you know, there's something missing there. And there was just no white children.
And that's how they're going to do it. And that's the thing, you look at all the shops that still exist, but, you know, Mr.
The Asian people were beginning to control this area.
Reminds me of, I saw a chap in Bradford, he was saying the same thing, that basically Asians dominate that town. And but the thing is, you have to look, only recently I saw a headline saying that Bradford's going to become a ghost town because no one wants to go there, so it won't be long until that place starts falling apart big time. But our Bradford, with its old architecture and yeah, it's extraordinary architecture, but they've just ruined it, which is what they do.
I think white people are giving a very, very bad time right now. Very, very bad time right now.
Yeah, so for those of you who think this is all going to be roses and rainbows at the end of it, you know, a lot of these people don't like you. They're coming here, like I often say, they hold you with absolute contempt.
Then I'll never forget this girl. She was a young white girl, Whitechapel. They was fighting on the bus. This Asian girl, you white bitches, you white bitch. And you know what the girl said to me?
That's just it, exactly. You know, I hear it no end of times, and you only have to look in the media every day. It's white people this and black people are victims, and you know, you got to be a fool to believe that they're on your side and they want the best for you. The people coming here.
Let me stick out. I can't reply to you because what people would think about me. Now I thought to myself, it's true that if that girl would have replied, everyone would have accused. She would have been the racist. Do you know what I mean? And,
yeah, exactly. You know, they can be racist and as much as they want to not be called racist, but we say anything and we are racist. And again, you know, the media proves that nearly every day.
You know, the Christian values have got everything. It's terrible, that's shocking. The respect, that's gone. The manners are gone. You know, the Christian values have got everything.
Well, that's what happens. You know, you import the third world, you get the third world. You know, this country was built by polite, well-mannered, hard-working sort of people. I'm not saying everyone was like that, but that is what built this country. And this is the end result.
Just disappear. Where have they all gone?
Essex.
He feels part of a new minority in Newham.
Yeah, you feel alone. It's most of the Muslims, they stick together, their children stick together. If you're an outsider, they don't want no part in, you know, they don't want to know you whatsoever.
And you know what? What we'll say to that is, fair play to them. You know, like they look after their own, which is something white British people could do with learning. They've got strong communities, strong values, strong faiths. Even if you don't agree with them, that's what they've got, and we really don't nowadays. But also, it kind of shows that, you know, like, even a mixed race man, slowly he's feeling like a minority and pushed out of the area by, you know, the Muslims.
West Ham's moving, I'm moving. You know, I'm taking myself away from. I'm going to go and find a better life.
I'm guessing he's referring to Upton Park, moving to Stratford upon, not Stratford upon, Stratford into, you know, the Olympic Park. That's where West Ham moved to. But he's packing up and leaving Newham to head to a Hornchurch, which I was there on Friday. But again, it just shows, you know, like, it's obviously that amazing that people pack up and leave and live in segregated communities. So just to fill you in on what happened there, basically with West Ham closing that football ground, they were just saying that basically the working men's club is going to suffer as a result financially. Be interesting to see if that's still up and running actually. So we'll see in the future. So this scene here is talking about the older ladies and basically, you know, when the working men's club, you know, kind of the community club disappears, they've got nowhere to go because there's no British people even left now to look after them or care for them. So it's another effect.
I met her on the bus and I decided to come. It was one of the best things lost our community. My son used to live here in East Ham and he was frightened that his children weren't getting a good education, so he decided to move out. He's moved to in a village called Bickenacre, Essex.
It's always Essex that they had for, isn't it? It's like the overspill for the East End.
One lady called Lily up at the club, she's a little bit older than me. She's 91 now. I was saying something about moving and she said, "You don't want to." If I let myself think about it, I don't want to go.
The life that we know is finished. Don't you agree? Yeah. And that's true. Newham's got it.
So sad, isn't it? But yeah, so you got these older ladies talking about it, that they don't really want to have to leave, but what do you do?
Biggest immigration population in this country for the size of what it is.
147 languages
in Newham. That's right.
That's why you have strong communities. You know, if you can't even speak the same language, how are you supposed to build a community? And that's part of the reason this is all being done. It's designed to destroy us. It's not designed to be like the way the Liberals push it. You know, it's designed to destroy us in the long run.
We've lost our community. We're foreigners in our own country now. When you're on a bus, I mean, Eileen and I...
It must be horrific for that generation to have to, you know, look at, sit on a bus and just remember how it would have been back in their day to what it is now.
We're the only two white people on there this morning. We were the only two, and it was chock-a-block full. To Canning Town. It's murder.
That look on her face there, you know, I can really relate to that look. You know, I've done it enough times myself. You just, it's kind of a mixture of emotions, isn't it? Just like, well, what can you do? So out of order.
So different. It's so much cleaner, the people are so much more politer, they'll say morning, everybody knows each other, there's countryside, so much more for them to...
Not really much to comment on there, to be fair. Yeah, has to be said, in fact, to be fair, anywhere I've been it's very third world immigration, high population. Is normally a shithole, to be fair. You know, there's bags of rubbish left everywhere. I can't really say it's just them, because a lot of white British people now are pretty similar for fly tipping and that as well. It's not just them. But the countryside is an important thing, because living in the East, it's probably better for these people's mental health as well, you know, being closer to the countryside instead of some big urban environment.
Do. It's more English in Essex. I think my boys have been mixing with their own.
To be fair, she's right for the time being. I went to Rayleigh back in January, February time, I think it was, and she's right. It is still very much a white British area. Yeah, it's still very much us.
Around your own people, you feel more comfortable around your own kind of people. And I think the fact is that everyone of the white British have all moved out to Essex, so I feel the few that are left in the room feel that why stay here? All our own have moved out, so why don't we up and move out with them?
That's the thing, it's segregation for you. I remember there's a documentary about Blackburn that basically, people never from different communities rarely interacted with each other, but just lived parallel, separate lives. And again, it goes back to what Muhammad Ali was saying on Parkinson, that birds with a feather stick to their own, stick together.
She is, or where I'm from, or her mum's from. I don't want her to forget these things. I think these schools around here will make her lose her identity.
Nothing nasty against this guy. He's a lovely bloke. It's quite strange though, because his missus is Romanian and he's half Jamaican, half English. So it's a bit of a mixture already, really. But he's a good guy and he's speaking the truth. So got nothing against him.
These schools, you find a nativity play, no more nativity plays.
I can relate to that a lot. A lot of these kids now don't even know about Jesus or anything to do with Christianity, because why bother? It's all been taken over by so many different religions.
66 primary schools, serving nearly 40,000 children. 20 years ago, more than half of them were white British.
The speed that's changed that. The speed, the demographics have changed as it progressed. It started off steady like a trickle, but it's like a flood now.
At Drew Primary in the heart of the Docklands, there are now just 3 per class.
Horrendous, isn't it?
Different faith. Come on, be careful. So I'm quite happy because they will be more open-minded. Be careful of the mud, be careful of the mud. In saying that, I have to...
Just to backfill you there, so his family moved to England from Bangladesh in the 1930s. When he came out of the house, he had 6 kids with him. Not saying that's a bad thing at all, just saying that's kind of says a lot though about reproduction rates and who's going to take over who in the near future. And he's just talking about basically that it's a multicultural area, but like he says in a minute, there's not any British culture left there anymore.
Say that the British way of life is something they are not experiencing because of lack of British children.
It's because everyone's packing up and leaving. Because without being rude, the truth is it's because of yourselves. You move in, we move out. That's the way it goes.
A fantastic way of people assimilating into a society, because children don't see colour. Children don't see religion. Children don't see all of those things that adults may see.
Yeah, because the children, I absolutely despise this head teacher, by the way. She's been headhunted from Australia, so she obviously ticks all the right boxes, has the right mentality for this dystopian project that was forced on us. I can imagine she's the same sort of people, same kind of person that's indoctrinating the kids with liberal nonsense about more than 2 genders and Black Lives Matter and white guilt and all that sort of stuff for the last remaining kids in there. Yeah, but kids, they just want to kick a football around, don't worry about adult things until obviously they can grow up, and then when you grow up, reality dawns on you. It's just a fantasy world. So basically this ideology, the liberal ideology, basically is a child's ideology. That's what you've just proved there.
I'm 3 and actually I like you because you like playing with trucks.
Yeah, and then you grow up and then you realise human nature, we stick to our own. We have different interests. It's just, like I say, I've just said it, I've just kind of made that philosophy there, and then the liberal ideology is a child's ideology. And that's how things were. Shocking, isn't it? These old archives kind of prove that this was never always the case. Hard working class white people that built this country for these people to come and live in. Funny thing about all this filming is I've noticed not one person's kicked off about somebody filming, but I was only watching NGB Audits, I think he's called, in the Midlands yesterday, and some builders were kicking off with him for filming there. It's just mad, isn't it? There's less cameras then, but people didn't kick off and now they do. Yeah, just an observation.
Picture. It was 98% white English children.
I'd say that's about right. I think there's nothing wrong with this small amount of multiculturalism, 2%, 5%. That's what I went to school with in Derby. There was a token African kid, Chinese kid. No one bothered. Yeah, sound. Because we're not racists. And but now it's obviously too much.
Now you look at the latest picture. Oh my God, is that Drew school? Is that school from Africa or Romania? My son racist, believe me, I'm not racist.
But you're right, if they're Africans and Eastern Europeans and South Central Asians, then you would be forgiven because ethnic groups of people are nationalities.
But it's just how it feels now. Clothing, in fear of being picked on or in fear of being looked down upon or a racial remark.
Surveyor is complaining that he was given a bit of racism when he first moved over, but what do you expect? No one was ever asked whether they wanted this. No one was ever consulted by the powers that shouldn't be. So what did you expect? There's no point getting upset about it. It's totally understandable for local people to be upset about their community changing.
Boy, Packy, go back to your country. Oh, you smell a curry. Although they themselves love to eat curry. I do miss them. Instead of just migrating to Essex, why don't you stay here? Fight for it. But they just throw the...
Always makes me laugh at people going about fighting for it. I see it in the comments either on my channel or other people's. Like, fight for it, we need to unite and fight. Well, how are you going to do that? There's laws in the way. And voting obviously achieves very little. The Lib Lab Con, they're all the same. I think that's the hardest thing, is that you can't fight back against it.
This area has been taken over by Asians and Africans. Oh, we're leaving.
That's the way to go. You haven't really got a choice, have you? You just got to pack up and leave. Otherwise it's just a nightmare to live amongst, isn't it? It doesn't achieve anything by digging your heels in.
I hate this fucking area. I really do. There's too much crime going on around here, and I'm so glad to be away from it all. I've got
yeah, a chap there, he's packed up and left the area. He's moved to Rainham, which is not the best area. It has to be said. It's also full of these people. I noticed when I was there a couple of weeks ago.
I was studying electrician in college, and I remember walking out of college and I heard "White boy, drop your phone and walk off."
So arrogant. White boy, drop your phone.
No disrespect, I was probably the only white kid in that college. Well, they didn't know I'd done boxing. I threw 20 punch combination on all three of them, and they all went down. And
That's a true story. Fair play to you, mate. It's bloody good going, that. But to be fair, I saw a video in Leeds where one bloke took on 4 or 5 of them recently, and he pretty much held his own. And he didn't even do boxing by the look of it. A lot of long swings, but he still managed to hold his own. They're like pack animals, aren't they? Cowards. You have to walk around in big groups. Same as the Pakistanis, they're the same. Get them on their own, absolute cowards.
I'm white. So it's a racist attack. I mean, that's bullshit. My nan and my mum are Indian. Bullshit. My nan and my mum are Indian. And I don't think I'm racist. But I'm not having no little fucker telling me, "White boy, drop your phone."
Against the ISIS, because I hate them. I don't consider them Muslims. But it does hurt sometimes when people say, because you're a Muslim, you're not British no more. How can I not be British? Fifth generation British, mate.
This is a big problem we've got now, is that people who've been here, you know, right back to the grandparents moving here, and now they see themselves as British, and I can sort of put myself in their shoes and sort of perhaps see it, but where does that leave the original population? You know, the Saxon, well, them, you know, the white women, the blonde hair, blue eyes, they're the original English, they're Saxons. Probably Scandinavian, maybe Viking descended, Saxons, Germanic descended. So just because you've moved from bloody Pakistan or Bangladesh doesn't really make you British, does it? Ethnically, you can never really be British.
He would have vouched.
It's all about his childhood friends here.
He's much more British than us. He's much more proud of being an East Ender than us.
Let's think about that logically. So the lads that you were with, who've had to pack up and leave because there's too many of, without being rude, people like yourself moving in, are going to say that you're more British than them. I don't think that really makes sense, does it, to be honest? Because they would have known themselves as British, along with all their ancestors, for thousands of years, without being rude again, before people from Bangladesh and India started moving in. So that doesn't really work.
I want to feel like I'm living in England and belong there, really, again, to be honest.
I don't know if I'm right, but it's something very hard about this lady that's moving. I don't mean that in a bad way, just she seems very tough, you know. Her sister and her mum were crying a lot. She doesn't. She's very kind of stoic. Yeah, just quite a tough woman by the look of it, and she kind of a bit more pragmatic. She's got to do this because it can't go on. She hasn't really got an option, so just a thought, just a sense that I get. As I say, not in a bad way. I just think I respect it, to be honest. She's very sort of pragmatic and just has to get on with it.
Back to the old East London, how it used to be. Being there with your own people and fitting in again.
No, I really. Yeah, I know it well. Yeah, a nice place, really. Nice windmill at the end. Quite traditional looking.
Feels like she's passed away. It feels really bad. Like, I got a bed.
I think that pub's gone now, actually.
I've ever thought about moving out because we all live in a fishbowl, really. Now we're losing a close member of the family. Straight away, that's put a guard up to me thinking, well, I need to go.
And that's the way it goes, I'm afraid. I mean, my family is the same. They, my mum and dad, you know, they had a Muslim family move in next door. My dad didn't want to be part of it, so he just packed up and left. And that's the way it goes. You know, I'm the last person hanging on in that village now, in Derbyshire.
I've got to move. Then if I move, I know my mum will follow. Then if my mum follows, I know my nan will follow. So then you've lost...
And that's how it goes. We just get driven out. You just have to pack up and leave. As wrong as it is, that's what happens.
It's a big generation, a family generation in Newark. Completely roots you come from, to be honest. The East End, you would never get better than the East End, I don't think.
Despite not being from the East End, I'll probably be able to agree with you there. You know, from what I've seen of Londoners, the remaining Londoners, I think it would have been an extraordinary place for me to go and photograph if the East Enders were still there.
I just think the East End's still here. If you want to look for it, it's there.
Maybe 7 years on, it's got to be worse now than what it was back then. There's no stopping this now, there's no reversing it, it's just, you can't possibly ask them to go home, so it's going to be like a different continent now.
Eventually things will change, but it'll be too late then. It'll be too late. I think it's, I don't know, perhaps I'm kidding myself, perhaps it's too late already, perhaps it's all gone.
Pretty much what I've just said, really, mate. Yeah, it's probably too late to change. Yeah, you can't really, how could you possibly reverse it and get it back to what it was?
There anyway. Perhaps the good old East End has gone after all that, you know. Perhaps I'm living in the past, perhaps it's me.
That's what we do though, mate. It's nostalgia for you, isn't it? You know, rose tinted glasses. But I'm pretty confident it would have been better back then than it is now.
But everyone's moving out, everyone's moving in, like we've got the foreigners coming in here and they're not taking taking over, we're letting them. It's like no one ever stood their ground, did they?
It's the thing. Again, the thing is, there's so much truth that's been spoken throughout this documentary. It's amazing it was even aired, really. But yeah, but again, it goes back to, well, what do you do, really? You know, we're not in the age of medieval knights or Victorian soldiers. You know, you can't really stop it. We're handed over everything to the rulers of this country. You know, the monarchs and the bankers and the tyrants. We handed it all over to them, and it's their control, it's their game, basically. As a result, they created the laws, we built everything for them, but they've orchestrated it and watched over the building of it all. And this lady, this old lady, she's leaving her house, and obviously Somalians who she couldn't speak more highly of are saying goodbye to her, but I'm sure it'll be another Somalian family or third world family that moves in above into her place. So
Oh, you're a lovely boy. I'm going to...
look at that racist English woman.
10 years' time, maybe not even that, there will be absolutely no trace of Cockney culture, no trace of British culture, I can assure you, in 10 years' time. Not even that, maybe. Everything, this area.
Bear in mind, this documentary was made in 2016. It's now 2023, so we're 7 years in. So, pretty much there now, really. I do need to do the East End at some point. What I've noticed, there is still things remaining. You know, the buildings, the pubs. There's still a handful. But they're all ones that are decaying and kind of got vegetation growing out of them. And they're always in dangerous places as well, like courtesy of all the Africans and Arabs.
We are stood for is being eradicated slowly but surely.
This is what always gets me about a lot of these sort of, we'll see, Bangladeshi, you know, so the people that come here. And I'm on about the non-Europeans. I'm not too fussed about Eastern Europeans or Mediterranean people, because the Europeans, similar culture. Even like people from South America, or I am, I suppose, on about Africans and Arabs and South Central Asians. They move here and then get confused when, you know, all our culture that they inherited and loved starts to disappear. But they can't ever realise they're part of the problem. You know, that him moving there and his family moving there and him reproducing and staying there is part of the reason why it's disappearing. Right, all. So I'm just going to play a couple of clips from, and also to draw attention to it, because a lot of people haven't heard of this documentary. It aired back in 2016. It was called Last Rites of the East End. My main issue is going to be trying to get around the copyright, so I have to play certain clips that really were quite depressing, and it's more of a warning, really. The East End is basically a warning to the rest of the country of what's going to happen if things continue as they are. If you notice, all these people, they're not happy with what's going on, and they're all moving out. So these soppy middle class types that you see, you know, out in the rural Northumberland or rural Wiltshire, just as examples, you know, with their vote Labour, vote Liberal Democrats sign because it's good to be on the virtuous side, and it's easy to hand things over rather than maintain them, isn't it? So it's just a warning to you, really. And all the delusional young kids who've been brainwashed by the university, college, school factories, again, it's a warning to you. So, first, this is the first bit. And I will say the BBC did a great job on this documentary. The BBC is a funny one because they'll do things like The Last Kingdom, which were phenomenal, absolutely extraordinary. In, you know, representation of Bernard Cornwell's novels, on a par with Sharp. You know, there was no diversity, there was no LGBTQI, it was just a genuine, almost patriotic drama of how England was, you know, during the time of King Alfred. So, yeah, good on the BBC for this documentary. We didn't hold any punches and just showed it as it was.
I feel a foreigner in my own borough. We were born here, lived here.
So I mean, what he says, I'm having to keep pausing this. Apologies. You know, I'll leave the link to this documentary in my comments, but you're gonna have to listen to me rambling on in between just to break up the copyright. You know, I'm doing this mainly because it makes me feel better that I've tried to do something to wake up the people who are asleep and still believe in this myth that we're all going to get on with each other and this is all for our own good. We were never asked, obviously, is another reason. But we're born here. So you find a lot of immigrants constantly going on about that they were born here. So they're as British as someone like myself whose ancestry goes back in this country almost indefinitely, along with Northwest Europe.
Finding ourselves marginalised out.
Yeah, so that's another thing that's happening all across the country. People, they move in and we move out. That's the way it goes. And if you don't believe me, look at anywhere. Look at Liverpool. You know, the streets that used to be, was it Breck Road? I'm not from Liverpool. I'm just watching Joe Owens and what he talks about. But, you know, people have had to just pack up and leave from there. They don't stay, do they? Not many people stay and, you know, live this rainbow lifestyle of multiculturalism and all that, because a lot of people coming here don't like us. You know, they want to take over.